Now in part 2 of this video, we look at what parts of the world are more suitable for photovoltaic electricity or generating energy from the sun in general. Now one thing that's very interesting about how the world is structured is that places that are very suitable for photovoltaic energy, places with a lot of sun, are usually not the same places that are very suitable for wind power. The colder countries are much more suitable for wind power because that is where there is a higher velocity of wind. And it's almost as though these two things are related in that there is not much overlap between places that are suitable for solar versus suitable for wind. Now, some countries that are not suitable for solar, such as Germany, have heavily subsidized solar. And they have a fair amount of photovoltaic electricity, but they also have a tremendous amount of wind power. Germany generates maybe 25% of its electricity from wind power and maybe 8 or 9% of its electricity from solar. And we'll look at that in a minute. But you can see which parts of the world are extremely suitable for solar. And it goes without saying that the parts of the world that are suitable for solar correlate with the skin color of the people who have evolved in that particular region. The more sunlight in a location, the darker the skin of the people who evolved there will be, and the less sunlight, the lighter the skin of the people that evolved there will be. And by light skin, I mean less melanin. White people are not technically white, they're translucent because they have an absence of melanin, whereas black people have more melanin than any other type of human. That is why they are dark. But it's really just a scale of melanin from 1 to 10. Someone like me would fall in the middle. Now, as you can see, the Arabian Peninsula, the central portion of Australia, and most importantly, the Sahara Desert in Africa, the Sahel in Africa, and even the Namib Desert over here in Africa are very well suited for solar. In the United States, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, etc. are well suited for solar. The sunniest and driest place in the world, of course, is the Atacama Desert in Chile, so they could be minting money with solar as well. But if you look at which countries are doing a lot with photovoltaics, even if you adjust out the heavy subsidies, such as what Germany does for photovoltaics, you see that many countries are not taking advantage of this, even though this is a technology very well suited for them. So we go to this next chart. We saw this growth rate in part 1, and we can see how the growth rate is exponential with very little photovoltaic electricity generated until 2007 or so. But now if we do a country by country breakdown, you can see which countries are generating what portion of the entire world's photovoltaic electricity. China is, of course, the biggest. The United States is the second biggest. And then you have India as number 4. Germany, I talked about, is much more than any other country in Europe, but Germany gets very little sunlight, of course. Now, India is the interesting one to look at here because it is generating a lot, even though it's a poor country that is very low tech and is generally not that good at adopting technologies that would move it economically forward. When I was young and naive, I thought all poor countries would catch up quickly to advanced economies as technology got lower and lower cost. Then I realized that the human capital and the expertise for technology integration into an economy is not as abundant and obvious as we may think. And we see that from the sad state here of Africa as a continent. Now, even within Africa, this yellow box, we see South Africa as the biggest country and Egypt as the second biggest country. That means that countries of sub-Saharan Africa that are run entirely on the expertise of people from sub-Saharan Africa are still generating very little because in South Africa, only 80% of the people are actually natives of that continent. The other 20% are from Europe or from India. So these are the countries of sub-Saharan Africa. Despite the huge amount of sunlight that they get, they are generating very little photovoltaic electricity, even when India can generate this much. So let's look at the speed at which India's photovoltaic electricity actually grew. Back in Wikipedia, we see solar power in India. And as we scroll down, we see this bar chart. In 2010, it was virtually nothing. And now it has grown very rapidly. So from nothing in just 14 years, 2010 to 2024, India now generates a huge amount of photovoltaic electricity, almost 82,000 megawatts of capacity, 82 gigawatts of power, and 7 to 8% of India's electricity is being generated by photovoltaics. So even though a country had almost no photovoltaics in 2010, most of the world didn't, but India was still behind the advanced countries by a few years then, catch-up was pretty fast. It grew from nothing to a very large amount, and as we go back to that block diagram, you can see that India is in fact a major contributor to world photovoltaic electricity generation. And this is important because being a sunny country, this is a technology more suited for a sunny country, as I said before. That keeps India in the game in terms of staying on a path of progress. When we talk about a technological singularity, it's all well and good to talk about artificial general intelligence and generative AI and new paradigms of computing like quantum computing. But the other dimension of all this singularity related talk is about whether the poorest parts of the world can actually progress through technology. And via photovoltaics, we can see that India can integrate solar into its economic growth and benefit from that, and that's why India continues to maintain decent growth, whereas sub-Saharan Africa is doing nothing of the sort. Now the question is sub-Saharan Africa merely where India was in 2010 and it's about to take off? Or do they just not have the ability to integrate this one technology which is uniquely well suited for them? Sub-Saharan Africa has much more sunlight than Germany or the United Kingdom or the Netherlands does, yet they have the technological expertise to do much more with photovoltaic electricity than Sub-Saharan Africa. And Sub-Saharan Africa also has much more land than India does. It has 6 times more land easily than India does. And yet, this is not happening. Is it about to happen, or do they just not have the expertise even now, and will they ever get the expertise? This is a question for anyone who believes in a technological singularity, because most visions of a technological singularity have to include all humans transitioning to an era of almost unlimited abundance from technological means. Can that happen when Sub-Saharan Africa is not implementing the one technology that is extremely well suited for them and would enable them to mint money very efficiently? You see, Australia has a lot of sunny, dry land, and even though it is an advanced economy, it is minting a lot of money from photovoltaics. So is the United Arab Emirates, which has a lot of oil wealth, but is no longer dependent on oil prices because they have migrated to solar. So this is a question that is of great importance to any discussion about broader human upliftment and the world rate of economic growth and the world poverty reduction rate and a whole bunch of other things that we always talk about on a path to the singularity. A technological singularity is at some risk or could be delayed significantly if this poorest part of the world is unable to adopt the technology that is most suited for them and could allow them to mint money very easily, as other parts of the world are in fact doing already. Something to think about as we talk about both a solar singularity and an overall technological singularity. Now we continue to part 3 for some other aspects of this solar singularity.